On this year's Emmanuel Tumsime Mtebile lecture, the president came out strong. Now, we know well that the country is on the path of socio-economic transformation and a number of aspects that are being put in place, of course, including different government ministries, departments, and agencies. But the president came out straight on particular ones saying they have failed or they are failing this socio-economic transformation because of corruption. And unfortunately, one of those that we're hosting tonight was beaten up, but that's not the reason we're here. Uganda Revenue Authority, of course, mentioned amongst those, including the Ministry of Finance as well, being implicated for corruption, quote unquote.
That's not the only wrinkle that is there when you look at some of the issues that are happening with Uganda Revenue Authority. The Inspectorate of Government has come out to be able to say, you know what? There are whistleblowers saying the issues or the conduct in Uganda Revenue Authority is questionable and we're going to be investigating. So as the investigations go on, Mildred, what else should we be expecting here?
Well, I know that this year's budget cap is at about 50.2 trillion shillings, and Uganda Revenue Authority in the next financial year is expected to raise more than 29 trillion shillings. That's quite some work, and we need to support Uganda Revenue Authority.
It's not only wrinkles, but there are also stains on these clothes of Uganda Revenue Authority. The Constitutional Court came out to slap and say it's unconstitutional for you to be able to go for people's personal accounts from their commercial banks. And they have said, you know what, that information can only be obtained if investigations are happening.
But well, all these have been running in and around social media and across media, and that is why NBS Television and UBC have brought the key persons from Uganda Revenue Authority to respond to some of these questions. So it's not going to be only guns blazing, because we want to look at the mandate, we want to look at the challenges and the plans, because Uganda Revenue Authority only collects and sends the money to the consolidated fund. But well, we want to know who is on our panel tonight, and in no particular order, let's take a look at who is on our panel.
Customs at Uganda Revenue Authority. He has served at the URA for the past 19 years. Abel is an accredited leader who completed the World Customs Organization's WCO Leadership and Management Development Program. He is also a fellow of the Commonwealth Tax Administration Senior Leadership, an accredited trustee of the Johannesburg School of Finance. He is a WCO accredited valuation expert and JICA or ESC master trainer. He is an astute leader with a clear focus on guiding people towards a common vision by creating a conducive environment for them. He believes in transforming people through mentoring and coaching, leads by example, and maintains an open door policy at the workplace. In 1998, worked with the Ministry of Defense as a PECADRA for 2 years, where he streamlined and computerized the payment system of the UPDF. 2000, worked with the Special Revenue Protection Services SRPS, where he established the Fraud Audit Team as SRPS headquarters. 2002, joined URA as a PIAT officer and has served as a verification officer, a CBC valuation officer in charge of control desk, in charge of compliance, CBC, in charge of bus terminal, supervisor custom, Malaba station, manager customs for Northern region, and manager customs enforcement operations. He participated in time release studies TRS in 2005, 2008, 2010, and led the team that conducted the 2019 study. 2018, he was appointed the Assistant Commissioner Customs Audit SCCA until 1st of April 2020, when he took over as Acting Commissioner Customs. On the 1st of September 2020, he was appointed the Commissioner Customs Uganda Revenue Authority.
Good evening, Commissioner. How are you? And
Fine.
It's good to see you.
Fine, thank you. Hi, how are you doing?
I am very well.
And thank you for hosting us.
I like the tie, though.
Thank you.
I like the tie. You and I know where we come from with this one.
Thank
But
you.
it's good to have you.
Thank you.
Let's catch our next panelist who is here with us tonight.
And tax professional with 20 years of experience in the industry. She began her career with the Uganda Revenue Authority URA as a tax auditor and later worked at Ernst & Young as a senior tax advisor for 10 years. Sarah has intensive experience in tax administration and advisory services across various sectors, including financial services, insurance, hospitality, construction, NGOs, oil and gas, telecommunication, consumer services, and manufacturing. She has also worked with other revenue authorities in East Africa and holds several leadership certificates. Sarah is a certified member of Chartered Public Accountants of Uganda, CPA, and an affiliate of the Chartered Institute of Taxation, United Kingdom, where she earned an advanced diploma in international tax.
Huge service, just as huge the knowledge that we are going to be sharing. Sarah, very good evening to you, and say hello to our viewers.
Hi, Mildred. Good evening, Mildred, and thank you so much. Good evening, viewers. Happy to be here.
A pleasure having you on that panel, which almost seemed a manual, but we're grateful that it's not that. Let's take a look at who our next panelist is.
Robert Mutebi, Commissioner, Information Technology and Innovations, City URA since December 2021. Previously Head of Business Technology, DFCU Bank, Senior Manager, Technology Solutions, MTN Uganda, Business Strategy, Leadership and Technology Professional, 20+ years of Teams leadership, 18+ years experience in IT and telecoms, 15 years plus supervision and management, 7 years plus of business intelligence and data analytics, Chartered Manager, CMI, and John Maxwell Certified Leadership Coach. He has an MBA from Leicester University, UK, Master's Level Diploma, CMI Level 7, Strategy and Leadership, CMI UK, Masters of Science in Technology, Manipal University, India, Bachelor of Electric Engineering from Makerere University, a Certified ITIL, CISM, Digital Finance Practitioner.
Good evening, Robert, and it's good to see you. It's been a while, and when I looked at your CV, there are a few things I remember. John Maxwell, I also remembered maybe we have 5G network here today. Good evening. Greet our viewers.
Good to see you, Timothy. Yeah, we've done some good work together. I'm happy to be here and look forward to the show.
Thank you very much. Let's get our next panelist.
Mr. Issa Sechito is a certified accountant, businessman, trading in domestic electronics, a seasoned farmer growing mangoes, a beekeeper, a long-time speaker of Kasita Uganda, the Director for Trade and Commerce at PSFU, Comesa Business Council, Director representing Uganda, patron and advisor to several business associations across the country.
How exciting it is to talk about a farmer when it is a rainy season. Such as is
Yes.
Mr. Isachachito. Our pleasure having you, and say hello to our viewers.
Yeah, good evening, viewers. I'm delighted to be here, possibly the oldest serving person at URA, in quotes,
Okay.
because I've
Because
stayed.
of the interaction you've
Yes,
had with
I've
them.
stayed with more than 3 to 4 commissioner generals, and I'm almost an advisor to the whole team now, because the majority of these I have monitored.
Yeah.
We have interacted, we have shared experiences. The bad and good times, we have shared them together. Good evening, viewers.
Good evening to you, and that explains the reason why you were seated there while everyone expects only URA staff to be on
Yes.
that panel. But okay, we'll be getting into those details. Let's have our last but in no means the least panelist today. Let's take a look.
John R. Musinguzi is the Commissioner General of the Uganda Revenue Authority, URA, with a mission to fully fund Uganda's national budget and liberate the nation from borrowing. Under his leadership, URA has established business solutions that have ensured continuity and trade facilitation, resulting in a revenue growth of 14.99%. In the financial year 2020-2021 and 21.6 trillion Uganda shillings collected in the last financial year 2021-2022, John has reinvented service delivery by instituting all-inclusive initiatives based on URA's values of professionalism, integrity and patriotism. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Makerere University and a Master of Science in Computing and Information Systems from the University of Greenwich, UK.
Good evening, Commissioner General. It's good to have you. One of the things they didn't put there is that you're a very prayerful man. Something I know, you led prayers at URA at some time going around that building. Right or false?
True. Correct.
True. Good evening, sir. Please greet the viewers.
Good evening, Timothy, and good evening, Mildred. Very nice to be here. Good evening, dear viewers. Very expectant and looking forward to a warm discussion today. Thank you.
Exactly, and happy to have you all. I think one thing that rhymes through the entire team that we have here is an open door policy, and that's what a taxman should be, because talking about URA, everyone wants to hide their books of accounts, everyone wants to hide everything about them because they feel like this is not a person who enables businesses to grow, but, you know, infringes on the businesses. But as we get to start this, I want to start with you, Mr. Rujoki, on the last few years that you've been at the Uganda Revenue Authority. We've seen a tremendous change, whether it comes to tax collection, but even ethic, because I love that today is Labor Day, and part of the theme is the work ethic, which is slowly but surely eroding among so many people who are working. So what do you see URA at now, from where you got it from, and the future that you envisage?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mildred, for that question, and thank you so much for the opening remarks. First of all, let me also take the opportunity to salute all the workers that support this nation and congratulate them on a good Labor Day. Of course, I also want to appreciate the workers who never rest, like yourselves, and of course the tax collectors and many other forces that never rest really, even when it's a public holiday like this. Now, going back to the question of URA, where I have been proudly part of the team at URA for the last 3 years, I can say a lot has changed. As you rightly mentioned in the introductions, we have 3 core values that we have been promoting and we continue to uphold for us to be able to serve in this very sacred mandate of collecting revenue for our national development. And number 1 is patriotism. We must put the love of the country above self. Number 2 is integrity. And number 3 is professionalism. So for the last 3 years, we've really focused on how to inculcate this in the culture of our staff, but also to impact the behavior of our taxpayers. And as you may know, for the last 3 years again, the pressure on the economy as a result of forces beyond our own making has been enormous. For the first 2 years, under strict lockdown restrictions as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. As we're beginning to get out of that, then the Russia-Ukraine war and its after effects. So all these things were not good for the economy of Uganda, and indeed it slowed down our growth. But in spite of that, we have seen significant growth in revenue collections. And this is not out of accident, because also remember that as a response of government to these pandemics and pressures on the economy, there has not been introduction of new policy measures. Normally when you're collecting revenue, part of it comes from the policy measures, so there can be an increase in the rate of taxation on fuel, an increase on taxation of communication, and so on and so forth. But also, as a strategic decision of government, there has not been increase in new rates, not in the previous years, not in the coming financial year. So whatever improvement that you are talking about, 15% growth of revenue, has definitely come out of efficiencies in tax administration. What that means, close some of the leakage taps, and I'm happy you spoke about the current talk on the investigations on URA and the corruption in the organization. And I'm not here to say there is no corruption. There is corruption, certainly in URA, just like it is in all other organizations. So that is a national sickness or challenge that we've got to deal with. But we can also account for what has been done in the last 3 years to tap and to curtail any maneuvers of corruption. And of course, number one has been to deal with our own staff. And now, like the saying says that when you get one girl pregnant on a hill, it causes a bad name to the whole community on that hill. Now that is what happens with corruption. You get one bad apple, and then it causes a name of the entire institution to sound like we are all corrupt. And that is, I think, the context of corruption in our organization, because we have done several measures to curtail this. Maybe key among them, we set up a whole division. Now, the URA structure is that the biggest segment is a department. Beneath the department is a division. So now we set up a whole division under the leadership of an assistant commissioner to deal with staff integrity. It's called the Staff Compliance Division. And that division focuses its effort on investigating any allegation of corruption, following it through, and also prosecuting the staff who is involved. And out of that, that division's effort, we've been able to deal with a number of corruption instances. And that, of course, is a very big disincentive to whoever wants to do that. And in the last 3 years, we have had, unfortunately, painfully, had to let go 63 staff of our organization, of all ranks and levels of leadership, as a result of corruption-related instances. And that's why recently, when there was an investigation, when the IGG, and it's good you mentioned that in your opening remarks, it's true the IGG has been at the organization to investigate allegations of corruption. It is something that we welcomed, because that would be an additional effort in the fight that has already been going on. But the unfortunate bit is that even before the IGG started, then there were claims in the press that URA is very, very corrupt, and then discoveries of billions of money lost. And that reporting was really very unfortunate, and it wasn't correct. But we also want to acknowledge that the media has since refrained from running that, because they were running the efforts that have been happening for the last 3 years and running them as new discoveries by an investigation that had not started. So what would be my comment on your first opening remark about the IGG investigation? Let's give it time to happen, and we will have its report, and the report will guide the discussion. But it's a very welcome move. Like any government institution, we are open to this, and we know it can add value once it's done properly. However, our fight has not just been fighting corruption. There has also been a deliberate effort by management to automate, because automation gives chance to minimum interaction with human beings, and that also brings more transparency and more accountability. So we have a whole range of areas where we have automated, and we have also utilized the advantages of technology, like data analytics. You had one of the panelists here is a commissioner for IT. This was a creation in the year 2021. We created a whole department of IT, because where we are going, tax collection will be based on IT. Just like all other businesses are going into IT, that's where the money will be flowing. So we had to lift up IT from being a division now to a full department. And what has that given us? We are building our capacity to analyze data to inform our decisions. Just as an example, because now, 3 years ago, our tax register was at 1.7 million taxpayers. As we speak today, our tax register is at 3.2 million taxpayers, a growth of 1.5 million taxpayers in a period of 3 years. How else can you achieve that? Use of data analytics. You are able to use technology to analyze and know who is playing what role in which sector. So we are very deliberate in 3 key areas, if I can summarize. One is the reinforcing of integrity in the organization. It is a sacred mandate to collect revenue for our national development. You cannot do it with dirty hands. So we must come with clean hands as we come to serve our nation in this area. But number 2, it is automation and digitization of all our processes. One, it makes our systems more efficient. So a number of areas, payment of taxes can now be done online. It can be done on your phone through a USSD code. It can be done in the area of your comfort. You can also reach us without having to walk to our offices. We have a contact center. We have a client relationship management tool. All these can help you resolve issues without coming to us. We can now also process the payment of taxes, the declarations and others more efficiently. So all that relates to automation. But then, finally, number 3, and I'm happy we are here this evening, is to sensitize and mobilize our taxpayers. Because this is not a journey we can win alone. I think it is becoming more and more clear that as a nation we must be self-reliant. And that's why our mission speaks about mobilizing enough revenue collection for our national development. We must not look at donors, lenders, borrowers, friends. We must look at ourselves as Ugandans. And yet constantly we are opening up our boundaries to cooperation, regional cooperation. So goods from Kenya and Tanzania can no longer be imports. Those are transfers and they come at 0 import taxes. We are soon going into the African Union. We will have a common market where goods will move. So how can Ugandans think about sustaining their country and their needs through taxation? So we are building our capacity in improving domestic revenue mobilization. And that is where the focus has been. And the key elements, again, have been our human resources, our technology, and then thirdly, our reach out to our taxpayers to mobilize them. And thank you, UBC and UNBS for hosting us tonight so that we can start this journey of mobilizing our taxpayers. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner General. And I'll come to Haji Issa. You have been part of trade, you have been part of business for the longest time possible. Kasita could be your third name just in there. But let's get to it. What has been your experience, especially working with URA, and also how can a business or a trader continue to enjoy partnering with them?
Yeah, it has been an experience of mixed fortunes because
Where do you want to start? The good, the bad? You know?
I need to start with a general statement.
Yes.
That really it is good knowing what you need to do with Uganda Revenue Authority, because long time ago they used to call us thieves and we used to call URA monsters. Time has long gone when that is the slogan. Today we are partners in development, and I like the motto of developing Uganda together. Surely it started as a small joke of tax clinics during the Zake and the late Commissioner General Kajina regime. When we said enough is enough, we needed to engage URA so that we know 2 major things. One are the rights and then the obligations. For as long as you are a business person, a taxpayer, learn that there are rights and obligations regarding Revenue Authority, you will enjoy working with them. It is something that is a challenge, because in the middle of the fighting between the revenue and the business people, you find so many challenges. A smuggler would not like that you talk about that. At the same time, a bad officer would not wish that you exist to enlighten the person that would be prey for whatever mischief that he wants to commit on the taxpayer. But all this said, many things have happened for over the time, ranging from the structure, development where now we are centralized in the same place. The courtesy we get when you get the parking slots in our own home as Uganda Revenue Authority. All this is something that has happened while we are watching. What now is a very big challenge, and the thing that needs to be really addressed, is the issue of customs valuation. I am telling you many challenges. If you conduct a tax workshop anywhere, in Kampala or anywhere in the country, people already complain about, is there something called the GATT valuation, as we tell them, an agreement on trade and tariffs? What is it that is necessary for my invoice value to apply? Traders think that a customs value guideline is the basis for tax collection. Yet, since we signed and started operationalizing the East African Customs Management Act on 1st of January 2005, we said we are going to act under Schedule 4 of the Act. That is, valuing goods according to their invoice value. Unless otherwise, then we go to the customs value guideline. This has remained a challenge on all regimes, and it is a challenge even up to today. There is no standard paperwork that a trader will present, and then method one would qualify. It is a tug of war. And this thing it needs to be treated because it is a source of controversy, it's a source of bribery, it's a source of so many mischiefs on the side of customs. The other issue, of course, that we have seen that is happening, especially as of now, is that we have a fresh challenge of the implementation of the East African customs harmonized policies. For example, you agree that as East African member states, please, can we now collect taxes basing on a 35% import duty, for example, for things coming outside the East African community? Their unilateral application of this at times challenges the business community. You remember the issue of textiles, the issue of mobile telephones, the issue of watches, the issue of hardware of recent. You see that in Kenya and Tanzania, we have traders who are partners doing business in Kenya, also doing business in Uganda. So when the tax range, for example, per a piece of a container of 40 feet or 10 feet is coming to 50 to 60 million is in difference, that means we are abetting or rather promoting corruption, smuggling. There is no way a trader would know that if I loaded my goods CIF Mombasa, right, and I will pay in Nairobi 50 millions, while I went to Uganda, I will pay 100, and then we risk of loading Kenya and then find out ways of entering the goods, which is illicit trade, non-developmental to our country, but now it is a big temptation. That is of recent, and I don't know whether some member states in the East African community are playing as a trick of valuation. It all goes back to the method of valuation. I have also had the challenges of recent. Whenever a parliament passes a law to the revenue authority, for example, there is something that is disturbing the small and medium enterprises, and this is the list of people that are allowed to withhold in the domestic taxes department. You withhold 6%, you get a supply to company X. Before you are paid, then the revenue says 6% needs to come from the one who has gotten the supply directed to URA. At the end of the day, you are not yet paid for money you borrowed from the bank, yet somebody called URA is already enjoying taking the tax. So that, what does that imply? It implies that for the period until you balance it off, you'll have lent your money to Uganda Revenue Authority to a tune of 6%, which is withholding tax. And unfortunately, many bigger companies, then after this law has passed, do run to the ministry and ask for waivers of this kind of provision. So the big ones who could talk to the minister, who could talk to the high authorities, are exempt of the practice, yet they were listed. Okay. So this gives a disadvantage to those medium companies who have no choice but to part with that. Okay. Yet, this money is, today, supplies take 3 to 4 months. You supply and there is no liquidity. Somebody will pay in the future, your money is already paid to Uganda Revenue Authority. So there are many issues, but all, when you look at all of them, there is deliberate effort to see that we modernize. The only other disadvantage is that the speed at which URA is modernizing is very far from the speed at which the business community is coping up. So we need to strike a balance on how much speed should we use to be at the same level, so that what I mentioned first, yes, the levels of understanding the rights and obligations are at least at par. Then we should be building Uganda together.
Developing Uganda together.
Yes, developing Uganda together.
I think looping from what Mr. Issa Sechito has talked about on the valuation mechanisms, Commissioner Abel, I want to come to you. And this also loops into the March 23rd ruling, Court of Appeal ruling of Catherine Bamgemedede, which was looking at a balance, or the idea of alternative valuation method versus the transaction value method, which she was also speaking about. And when it comes to also issues of importation, the businessmen have talked about these taxes that are, rather than enabling business, they're actually stifling them from continuing with business. What are you doing about these, and what are the steps to ensuring that importing, whereas the president has said we were almost making Uganda a supermarket, it doesn't mean that we produce everything here. There's some few goods that will have to come in from other countries.
Thank you, Mildred and Timothy. Thank you for that question. And first of all, to our viewers, I want to say that in terms of valuation, the primary method of valuation for goods which are imported is the transaction value. Now, transaction value is how you bought your goods. You come with your invoice and you tell us, this is how I bought my goods. And URA will assess taxes based on the amounts that you have bought your goods at. The only thing we add on that value is that if you bought your container at 20,000 Uganda shillings, 20,000 US dollars, we add what we call transportation costs. For you from China, let's say you bought from China up to Mombasa, freight can be about $3,000. So it becomes 23,000 US dollars. And then we add insurance, because you must have insured your goods. And usually you have what we call an insurance certificate. So when you have your invoice, you have your freight invoice, you have your insurance certificate, then we compute the total and multiply by the rates that we have and come up with the total taxes that you should pay. For example, if you came with a container of juices from China, now juices, because we produce a lot of juices here, then expect to pay a 35%. You know, there's a drink, some people like it, called Mikosh. If you bring it from China, you will pay, because we have a lot of juices that are produced here. So you'll pay that 35% of the 24,000 I'm talking about. You'll pay that 35% import duty. And we'll also charge you VAT of 18%. But because it's a juice that we have in plenty in Uganda, we will say pay some excise duty of 13%, because you want to enjoy that drink. And then we add the 6%, which is withholding tax, depending on your compliance level. There is something they introduced called infrastructure levy. It's 1.5% of the value. So that's how we compute the taxes under transaction value. Now, that's the primary method of valuation. Before you go to any other method, you first exhaust that method. Now, where my brother is coming from, Isa Sekito of Kasita, is that those documents I've talked about,
Are never available?
you will find someone has either one, or he has two, or he lacks one. Or even when you have the three, let's say, you have the invoice, you have the freight invoice, you have your bill of lading, you have insurance certificate, you'll find instead of someone capturing 24,000, which others buy at from China for the same juice, they capture theirs at $6,000. So the first question the officer at URA will ask will be, okay, your container is $6,000. The other colleague of yours going to Chikubo brought his at $24,000. So how are you going to compete in the market? So the officer will check now and say, you bought from China, almost the same time, same container. Could there be a problem with your documents? Yes, could there be a problem with your documents? And they check and actually find that document, if you check, because we have exchange of information with most of the countries, is not a genuine document. Yes, either it's been done on Nkuruma or anywhere, because I'm not there when they are doing the document. So even me as an officer, that's why I'm employed to work at URA, to check whether these are genuine documents. And I report it to him and say, brother, sister, no, this container can't come at 6,000. Because freight alone from China to Mombasa is 3,000. So did you buy a whole container at 3,000? Even anyone would see. So that's when now we doubt the transaction value. And we said, no. We'll have to use an alternative method. Now the alternative method is the other 24,000 the other person brought. And we say someone brought the same juice at 24,000. And he passed last week and is in Chikubo. So you better use this one. And he paid. So that's where now we shift from the transaction value and go to an alternative method, which is called identical or similar goods, which came from the same country at the same time. And that's the database Isa is talking about. He's saying we are using it a lot. We are using it a lot because of the reasons that I have given you. Otherwise, we will create imbalance in the market. You'll find it will not be fair taxation. It's not that we are aiming at getting a lot of taxes or anything, but we want to be fair as we enter the market. So there are 6 methods of valuation. The first one, the second one, which is identical goods, the third one, which is similar goods, the fourth one, which is deductive method. Now that is where we don't get any goods in the market that we import. So we go on now, look at your costs in the market, how you sell, and deduct all the costs and arrive at the value. Sometimes you'll find there is a fifth method called the computed value method. By the time we go to the last method, which is the fallback method, we have exhausted all the methods from the first one to the 6th one. So that's how we do the taxation. We don't rush and jump. I wanted to speak to the issue you raised of a case of a vehicle,
Yes.
of vehicles that happened at court. Yes, the court ruling came. We have not received it yet as URA. We read it in the papers after the judgment. But it's the same principle. I think where they are faulting Uganda Revenue Authority is that why did you jump to the 6th method before you exhaust the transaction value? And I think the argument's going on in court, but of course we'll go by the court ruling. But ideally, like I've said, we should be exhausting the transaction method first before we go to the last method, the 6th method.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But also just before I leave you, a question that was raised by Mr. Sechito on the 6% withholding tax, well knowing that I don't have this liquidity, I have supplied, but I am literally lending, like you said, lending URA money. You need it, but you know well that I do not have this money in store. How do you plan to work around that? Because that also disorganizes business a bit.
I need to get the specific case of the 6% because 6% is a compliance tax. It's a compliance tax, depending on how you comply, and that's how we charge it. So we don't expect to find you compliant, and then we charge you 6% because the commissioner may have power says because of your compliance levels, will not charge it. But I ask my sister Sarah to expound on it further, on the exact issue that he has raised that relates to 6% withholding tax.
And coming to you, Commissioner Sarah, especially on the withholding tax and the agents there, but expound especially on one of the complaints that many taxpayers are complaining about. One, they feel the tax system is very frugal and very frustrating. How can you help them in this place? And also looking at what the Commissioner General spoke about, he said, we are looking to have domestic taxes raised. How are we going to do that?
Thank you. Thank you, Timothy. And just to indicate that domestic tax is currently mandated to collect 63% of the total URA target. And because of that, we are seeing more of every Ugandan going to pay a fair share of this tax. If you look at the way the global market is going through, with the onset of so many trade blocs coming into the continent and even regionally, what customs is going to do largely is facilitation of business. And so whatever business is importing, whatever businesses are importing, will be money that we shall mobilize domestically. So as domestic tax, we are looking mainly at mobilizing taxes from different taxpayers. We have, for example, income taxes that come from businesses that are companies and individuals. We have rental tax from property, buildings mainly and land. We have employment taxes, people in gainful employment. We have presumptive taxes. These are for SMEs that are informal in nature. We mainly tax these ones based on turnover. And then we also have that withholding tax that my brother Illicit has just been talking about. Now, withholding tax is an advanced form of income tax paid by taxpayers, traders. They can pay it at importation or even domestically here when you supply goods and services. There is a 6% withholding tax on your gross sales. Now, this is advanced tax and it is a credit. At the end of the year, when you file your tax return, you reduce that withholding tax and then you pay the balance of tax. Under the canons of taxation, we have to, a good tax system is supposed to be convenient and flexible and should be certain. Now, the convenience is making you to pay this advanced tax now so that tomorrow you pay some small balance. However, for compliant taxpayers, we normally exempt them from withholding tax. So you will find that even at importation, they don't have to incur this withholding tax. There is always a criteria that we send out to the public. Like this month, we've just sent out a criteria and taxpayers are supposed to apply for these exemptions. We have segmented the taxpayers, the small ones and the large ones. So the small ones, there is a cut-off tax that we need, all domestic tax. If you pay domestic tax of about 50 million in a year, and then we tick off some other compliance, you must fulfill your tax obligations, filing tax returns in time, ensuring that the payment of tax is done on time. Tax is law, and it is really, it's guided by the way you meet your tax obligations. So as URA, that is the mandate we have for domestic tax. In domestic tax, we also look at non-tax revenue, which we collect through from other government MDAs. And this will be like driving permits, work permits. We look at express penalties, school fees. we look at all this as domestic tax revenue, and this is what supports it. The rental tax is a tax that we are looking at it as URA as a project, and it's collected from individuals and companies. The law has been fairly done because individuals now pay at 12%, and then companies at an effective tax rate of 15%. We see each and everybody earning this rental income contributing a fair share of this tax. Ordinarily, what tax is supposed to do is to enable your business and not to cripple it. But what happens is that if a taxpayer is not compliant, then tax becomes a disabler of business because it now comes with principal tax and penalties and interest, and these really are things that come through our system. Everything is automated, and this interest is compounded, is computed on a daily basis. So if you just sleep, the taxes grow. So that is really something that we want to educate our taxpayers, work with them to understand their tax obligations, to understand that if you pay your tax, you would have served this country and you would have been counted as one of the people who are contributing to the developments in this country. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Sarah. I think you clearly straighten it up when you talk about compliance and also the advantages that come with compliance, right? If you're a compliant taxpayer, we've already seen the 6% withholding tax could be waived off. I want to come to Commissioner Mtebi on especially the issue of IT. And as a student of IT, I clearly know that even IT itself has some bugs, you know, somehow it could be tinkered with. But we were talking about earlier on issues of valuation and whether someone has the documentation or not. And this being the newest department, the IT department at URA, what are some of those technologies you're instituting to enable that we will get to a point where Commissioner Abel doesn't even have to engage in a discussion, but I mean, the technology can clearly show you this is what it is, this is your tax, and of course I'll not argue with a computer like I would with Commissioner Abel.
Thank you, Mildred. It's a very fascinating question. But yes, we are the newest department in URA, and for very good reason. As you heard, our mandate as an administration is to mobilize revenue for national development in a transparent, and I will underline the word transparent, and efficient manner. And mobilization of revenue is a two-party game. We have a role to play as a revenue administration, but there is a role that the taxpayer has to play. And so when we're deploying technology, we have to be thinking about both those roles. Principally, the taxpayer has 4 roles. Number one is to register, registration. And that process is what allows us to expand our tax register or to introduce new tax heads to the people that are in different lines of business. So we've gone, particularly in this past 1 year, simplified that whole process and launched an instant PIN solution. And I think you heard the CG say that our numbers have tremendously grown. In 3 years, from 1.7 million to 3.2 is exponential kind of growth. Sorry about that. And the second role that we have as taxpayers, and I'm also a taxpayer, so I see it that way, is to file. Filing is a process where you declare that this is what happened within my business, and therefore this is the tax due. It happens for VAT, for example, every month, and for income tax annually. And so we have digitalized that whole process. You do not have to bring paperwork like it used to be in the old days to URA for you to declare your taxes. And we continue to simplify that whole process. It impacts compliancy in terms of revenue mobilization. Thirdly is payments. Today, there is nowhere you will have to go to URA and pay cash. And if you're a taxpayer out there and somebody says you bring the money here in a bag, you should know that's not URA money. because all the money that goes to URA has to go through digital channels. It's either deposited in the bank, and recently we are rolling out a USSD channel because we have a lot of unbanked Ugandans that are doing a lot of their business on the mobile phone. So our journey, as it is now, is to bring tax payments on the mobile phone. Lastly, it's really accurate reporting, and that is very important for us and for the ministry and for the public to know how much money have we been able to raise. So the obligations that we have, we're digitalizing them, and there are two things particularly that are our focus right now. One is for us to go as far as we can go to every Ugandan in the country, regardless of your economic status. And before, you had to come to the URA offices, which are not very many because of the limitations that we have. But now we have other channels. So this past 1 year, we've launched a call center, for example. If you have any issue, you can call, and you received and attended to. I had my brother King saying that he often calls call center. Number two, you can actually WhatsApp us. There's a clear WhatsApp line, and you get a response. And many of us deal with, we do a lot of business on WhatsApp. Number three, we have a web portal. Recently, we are launching something called a customer touch point. It's a customer relationship tool that is online, meaning that you actually, from the comfort of your bed, should be able to raise a complaint at any time of the day or night, for that matter, and receive somebody, get somebody to attend to you. Kasita will tell you, for example, that all customs processes are done online. Before that happened, we used to have a lot of lines at the URA because people doing trade need attention. But now we can do all that online. The third thing that we are doing is really to improve our service delivery. And a tin used to be an expensive thing for many people to get. Like I said, it's instant now. But there are also other business processes, like IFRIS. IFRIS is electronic fiscalized invoicing and receipting. If you go to a supermarket today, you'll get an invoice that has a code from URA. Once the supermarket does that and returns that invoice to us, we're able to account for all the VAT instantly, and therefore they do not have to carry a lot of paperwork to us at the end of the month. But what that will also do for us, which we're doing, is that instead of every month you computing taxes and uploading them and coming to URA, we'll actually be able to pre-fill these taxes for you, so that your job is just to come and click and say yes, and then click payment, and it becomes a very easy process. So we have another tool that we've deployed in the market, especially for alcohol, beverages, sodas, cement, that we call digital tracking solution, DTS. This is helping in two ways. One, to ascertain quality of the product that is being consumed in the market, but also to fight illicit trading in terms of illicit goods that come into the market by smuggling. And DTS is taking traction. We see the stamps, but it's helped us to work with NBS to make sure that the goods that are being consumed are quality goods.
Yeah.
But secondly, that they are not goods that have not paid taxes. And as we propagate these products or these IT solutions in the market, what we're really doing is to ensure that we're making it easy for taxpayers to comply to their obligation. So there's quite a landscape of things that we are doing to drive this. But as my brother from Kasita said, we're moving a little faster than the market, but we're hoping that the market will be able to work with us and make sure this works.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Robert there. Let me come to Commissioner Sarr, just some of the things that Haj talked about there. You gave us the scope of domestic taxes and gave us the details of what is there, but also taxable and non-taxable income that comes in there. What other avenues, what other space, both the Commissioner General and Commissioner Robert have spoken about 1.7 to 3.2 million taxpayers. What other opportunities are there? We have also seen the TIN identification. What other opportunities is there for us to raise taxes in this country or revenue?
And also maybe, Commissioner, I'd like to add what Commissioner Robert said on the issue of the unbanked community
Yes.
and how you're tapping into that, and a huge informal sector, yet they're actually doing business and earning, but they're not paying taxes.
Thank you so much, Mildred and Timothy. As domestic tax, we are looking mainly into rental. We've realized that a number of properties have mushroomed, both in Kampala and the metropolitan, and also upcountry. Every village now you'll find commercial buildings, residential buildings being let out, open land being let out for washing bays, parking space. All these attract rental tax. So in URA, we've created a project unit, a project office for rental tax, manned by a manager and a team of about 100 staff. These are specifically looking into rental tax, and we have segmented the staff. There are those that will look into the large taxpayers, medium tax, and regions. We are in the field, and we are using both technology and physical manual to get this information. So the other one is also working with other MDS like KCCA, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, NIRA, local government, National Water, Umeme, to get information on property. If, for example, you have about 10 meters in one name, definitely you must be doing some business somehow. We appreciate people who may be having more than one wife, but maybe a second home is okay. But surely we think that you can give us some fair share of tax from this. So we are doing this together with the IT system that we have for rental tax that helps us to map out these projects. So we have coordinates, we use digital systems to map out these projects, then we analyze, and then we go door to door. We have invested an extra van, an extra vehicle in every station to specifically look into rental. Now, the impact of this is that we have been able to grow the rental register from 80,000 to 152,000 just in 1 year, a growth of about 98%. And then we are also looking at the revenue growth in just the last 10 months of about 35% in rental tax. We still feel that it is a very big area. There is still a lot of potential in this area for us to mobilize revenue. The other one is looking at ledger reconciliation. We've been having issues with our ledgers, and we are in touch with our taxpayers. There is also a project that we have created, a team of about 50 staff, again headed by a manager and supervisors to manage this ledger issue. In the past 2 weeks, we sent 4 of our staff to India to appreciate how this can be done in terms of technology. And we are working on these ledgers. So far, we've handled about 60% of our taxpayers, largely starting with the large taxpayers and medium tax. So we are calling on all our taxpayers, please come and engage with us. If we are asking you for some tax transaction of 2013, we are not auditing you. We just want to understand so that we can be able to clear out your ledger and you have a tax balance that we agree together. We don't want to agency you to start demanding this tax that you don't understand. So the ledger issue is something that we are looking at closing it by 30th June. The other one is alternative dispute resolution that we have rolled out, and it's a fair hearing for our taxpayers. And we are calling upon taxpayers to embrace this, and this has helped us to collect more tax, and it's what we are still looking into. Conflict resolution or controversy in taxation is inevitable because tax is a creature of statute. So we are looking at supporting our taxpayers in doing this litigation. As they do controversy, we want to support them. We are also doing tax education very deliberately. We now have 2 Tujenge buses. We call them Tujenge. Tujenge is a Swahili name for build. And these buses have been able to traverse the whole country. It's a one-stop office. It will be able to do TIN registration, there is a boardroom. We are able to serve our clients, look at their compliance systems and advise them. So this has helped in tax registration. We have one platform with the public address system, and it has really helped us. So we are doing this countrywide, and it's able to assist us on tax education. We supplement this with radio talk shows, tax catalysts, seminars. We now do a sectoral-based approach for tax seminars. If we call people in the entertainment sector, we met the entertainment team just last week. We've met the hoteliers. We've met Uganda Manufacturers Association. We want to listen to our taxpayers and work with them as sectors. This way we are able to level the ground and ensure fairness as we administer this tax. Okay. Like I've indicated, domestic tax is the game changer, and we want every Ugandan to pay this fair share of tax. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Sarah. Interesting discussions, Timothy. Imagine having a boardroom on a bus, right?
Yeah.
Just moving and you're in a boardroom.
You're discussing tax.
Mildred, can I just add
Yes,
one
shortly
small
before we
point
take a break. Yes, go ahead.
on the domestic domestic tax areas of focus? Now, there is a tax head called value-added tax, VAT. VAT is a consumer tax. What that means, it is paid by the final consumer. Now, not everyone is a taxpayer. We have 45 million Ugandans, but we are talking about a register of 3 million. But everyone is a consumer, more or less. So, this VAT, when you are in business, you'll pay, for example, an importer like Mr. Sechito, he will pay VAT at importation. When he sells, he will collect VAT. And what he will pay to URA is the difference between what he has collected and what he paid. So essentially, he does not pay that tax. He transfers it to the next person, maybe who is a wholesaler. The wholesaler will also pay VAT to Mr. Sechito, who has imported, and he will charge VAT as he sells. Then he transfers it to a retailer, up to the final consumer who comes and buys this bottle of water and consumes it. Now, what has been happening is that along this value chain, people fidget not to pay VAT. So you don't declare your sales because you want to avoid VAT. But you're also missing the benefit of the VAT you bought when you are buying. And you also deny the continuity now of the final consumer paying this VAT. And what it does, it creates unfairness in the market, because the trader who sells without VAT is undercutting those who pay VAT. So the technology we've come up with is called IFRIS. IFRIS, in short, is Electronic Physical Receipting and Invoicing Solution. Now, a receipt that has IFRIS on it, as a signature, you'll see a small square at the bottom of it. They call it the QR code. Now, that QR code is confirmation that what you have bought has actually has been declared for VAT purposes. So I would want to rally our citizens and all taxpayers and all consumers, whenever you're buying, ask for that e-receipt or a receipt that has the QR code. That is very, very important. It ensures continuity of VAT collection. I'm sure you heard recently the Permanent Secretary talking about a possibility that we may not be collecting 3 trillion shillings. I would like to confirm that that is true, 3 or 4 trillion. I would like to confirm that that is true, because think about it, you are the consumers. Many times when you are buying hardware for building your houses, how many hardware dealers give you that QR code on your receipt? When you go to the restaurant to buy a meal, how many hotels give you that QR code? So we are doing a campaign called Mpa Receipt Yange. Give me my receipt. When you get your receipt, please check that it has the QR code, because that will be confirmation that it's going to pay VAT, and VAT will be carried on. Now, if we are collecting VAT today, we are collecting about 30%. If we can triple that, and we are collecting about 3 trillion. If we can double that, we'll collect 6. If we can triple that, we'll collect 9 trillion. And that will be a game changer.
Sure.
So the truth of the matter is there is gross under collection on VAT. There is gross complacency. When we start to enforce VAT, we get the loudest noise. Because when we go in the supermarkets and we deploy and we say, please show your receipt, oh, it is bad for URA. They are militarizing revenue collection. But let Ugandans really know that that is a tax that will not hurt the value chain players. Even the final consumer, anyway he pays it, only that this time it goes in the pocket of the one who has not declared that sale, instead of going to government. Thank you.
And this is why we continue to say developing Uganda together. We need to take a very short break, but we'll continue with such discussion. The hashtag is SpotlightUG, but you can also send in any questions that you feel like putting to any of the panelists. We are live on UBC and NBS television. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You have undoubtedly, in one way or the other, crossed paths with the Uganda Revenue Authority, URA, as a government organization, or at least seen its name. Are you aware of who they are, what they do, how they go about doing it, and what obligations they have to you, or even of your obligations to the URA? It is time for each one of us to get on the same page. Our panelists from URA, John R. Musinguzi, Commissioner General, Abel Kagumire, Commissioner Customs, Robert Mutebi, Commissioner IT and Innovation, and Sarah M. Chelangat, Commissioner Domestic Taxes, Mr. Issa Sechito, Country Representative of Gabriel Registra, an international ISO certifying company, will be joining us to shed a light on URA's mandate, challenges, and plans. Tune in this Monday, May 1st, 2023 to UBC TV at 10 p.m. featuring representatives from the Uganda Revenue Authority with the topic URA, the mandate, challenges and plans. Join the conversation online via hashtag SpotlightUG.
Talk with freedom. Get MTN Freedom voice bundles that don't expire. Dial *100 *21 hash or my MTN app for more bundles. Together, we're unstoppable.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president.
She is our family's pride, and as her father, I will protect her from child marriage and talk to her about the dangers of teenage pregnancy. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from child marriage and pregnancy, because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sawuti 116.
Iwakato, this is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the new Bona voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial *100 *1 hash, select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, under the auspices of the East African Community, will host the 10th East African Petroleum Conference and Exhibition 2023 from the 9th to the 11th of May 2023 at the Kampala Serena Hotel in Uganda. Take full advantage of the investment opportunities in the East African region's vibrant oil and gas sector. To find out more on how to sponsor, exhibit, or attend the 10th EAPCE 23, visit www.eapce23.eac.int.
Jerry con. Jerry con. Hey, Master Blaster. Touch him, man. Bang Jerry con with muscle. Those ones who say go for you only. Mundava. First school fees I teach you. When I'm going to the school, because of the cover is very far. Is you serious? It's serious you. What? Yeah? You stay put on it. Add kilometers to your legs, and you get your sugar. We buy meat from Umaru, and Umaru refused to give you enough meat. Mama! Show him that they don't joke with you. Umaru, Jerry car.
Okukakalukana okulungi kwetaagako omuntu akuyambako. N'olwekyo tujja kukuteerawo embeera esaanidde osobole okukola ekisinga. Awamu teri kitulema.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello? Hello? This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to...
You have undoubtedly, in one way or the other, crossed paths with the Uganda Revenue Authority, URA, as a government organization, or at least seen its name. Are you aware of who they are, what they do, how they go about doing it, and what obligations they have to you, or even of your obligations to the URA? It is time for each one of us to get on the same page. Our panelists from URA, John R. Musinguzi, Commissioner General, Abel Kagumire, Commissioner Customs, Robert Mutebi, Commissioner IT and Innovation, and Sarah M. Chelangat, Commissioner Domestic Taxes, Mr. Issa Sechito, Country Representative of Gabriel Registra, an international ISO certifying company, will be joining us to shed a light on URA's mandate, challenges, and plans. Tune in this Monday, May 1st, 2023 to UBC TV at 10 p.m. featuring representatives from the Uganda Revenue Authority with the topic URA, the mandate, challenges and plans. Join the conversation online via hashtag SpotlightUG.
Because they have not installed, informers are all around the shop. We need to sensitize and make people like it because it is efficient and advantageous. Some countries are playing us a blind eye. Tanzania, Rwanda, Kenya removed the taxes on rice because of the situation we are going through. Uganda has remained at 75%, all right? Even through this period. 75% import duty on rice. Yet this country said, no, we don't have food. For this time, we'll let us relax this import duty. Such maneuvers, Uganda doesn't want to listen most at times. There are some traders who brought rice from Tanzania, made in Tanzania, grown in Tanzania, and we are charged a 10% VAT, contrary to the existing law. Up to now, they are tussling that out with the URA in the courts of law. Why would this happen? We said that where we have harmonized, let us play the game rightly. It is not fair that we have harmonized on an incident, on a tax collection issue. On top of the non-tariff barriers, we also added tariff barriers for case of Uganda to steal for business. At the end of the day, it is as if we are promoting the neighboring countries to grow their tax rates and then, or rather their business promotions, and then ours are coming down. So my issue is Uganda Revenue Authority needs to help government in certain circumstances because they are the collectors. If a policy is passed, they have so many technical departments that can look at it. I was in Nairobi recently, and we agreed that on textile we are now harmonizing. We shall all charge 35% import duty across board. But on a list of about 47 lines, Mr. Commissioner Customs is still insisting that he's charging on kilos. Ask him where the volumes are. They are not existing.
I love that you're actually doing my job, so
yes.
you will actually be
yes.
responding
Because for Kenya and Tanzania, for example, if they impose a tax of 50% above the 35% that we passed for Kikoi and Kitenge, the production levels in both countries do not call for an importation of chikoi and kitenge. Ask Uganda what is it that they are producing massively in form of textile so that it warrants a protection. You are asking yourself in Uganda, are we protecting for the future or we are protecting existing facilities? For case of Tyros, for example, in Namunkekera, my home area there, it is soundable because the raw materials are almost 85% sourced here. There is a reason why you would protect. But where is the cotton? Where is the polyester? Who is producing what? Somebody came here and said, now I am intending to produce telephones. So please, 35% I pay to Ndugu Kagumire.
Yes.
Now, Kenya says, I will charge it when people use the phones and get the taxes from the consumers of the services in these telecom companies. Now, what the hell? He's turning an enforcement department that would deal with the smugglers outrightly, concentrating on these items because he has not advised government, whether silently or whichever way, to show government, because URA is better placed to know which policy is working out. While Okasita is lamenting and crying and even threatening demonstrations, they need to cooperate with the Commissioner General, pass documents which are researched. It's a research time now. You don't need to go and make allegations. You produce evidence that because of ABCD, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda are leaving us out. Can we agree to advise government so that some of these protections that we are intending to do, let us do them practically and when they are producing results?
Okay, thank you very much. And I don't know if you actually agreed to sit next to each other and fire the questions.
No, no, it is only that it is coincidental that most of the challenges that my business people face and the customs department.
Exactly.
The only one who's in my sister's area, the withholding tax, I know it's an income tax paid in advance, right? But what I was referring to is these agents. There is a section of people that they gazetted to withhold. What happens? Some of these, after being put on the list, they now write it to the minister to waive. For us who cannot reach the minister, we still struggle with lending our money to them. If it is a good policy, why are the big players now running to government to seek exemption of this? It means it is not a good law. Okay. It is not withholding tax that I was referring to. I was referring to the withholding tax agents.
All right. Before I come to you, Commissioner Sarah, let me start with the immediate neighbor of Mr. Sechito right there. Harmonization seems to be a very key aspect, and this has come through several different fora. But also, that seems to be what is promoting illicit trade and smuggling, which many manufacturers have complained about as distorting their own way. So as you answer the questions that Mr. Sechito brought out, what are you doing as URA to stop illicit trade and smuggling, which is affecting other genuine players in the market?
Thank you. Thank you, Mildred and Timothy, and thank you, my brother Isa. I think let me start with what he has talked about. One is that we are under the single customs territory. So when you say single customs territory, yes, we have the physical borders, but under the single customs territory, there are no borders. So if goods are grown, raised or produced within the factories within East Africa, they just, like Commissioner General had said, they on transfer. You transfer from Kenya and bring them to Uganda. You don't say, I have imported from Kenya. You've bought goods on transfer. What is considered to be imported are goods which hit the borders of East Africa. The borders of East Africa are known: Mombasa, Dar es Salaam. And maybe this side, on Congo side, or South Sudan side, or Rwanda, Burundi side. So what happens now is we have harmonized the customs laws under the East African Community Customs Management Act. There is a meeting for the Commissioner Generals which is fast-tracking, harmonizing the domestic tax laws. So the customs laws are harmonized at all the East African community level under the single customs territory, and we have a common law. So the domestic taxes, which involve the VAT, withholding tax, are the ones yet to be harmonized. So every country now charges, like you'll find VAT 16% in Kenya, Uganda you're at 18%. Some countries may not charge VAT, others may charge on certain products. That's the harmonization, which is being fast-tracked. But when he raised issues to do with policy, like on textiles and garments, now, there is no policy which can be said implement without research. There is always research that is done. The 47 tariff lines that they are talking about, he says they pay in a kilo. For us, we say they pay $3.5 per kilo, or whichever is higher, either 35%. Now, those are the ones Ugandans are producing. According to the policy, there are companies, factories in Uganda that are producing those 47 tariff lines. Now, when you look at textiles and garments, you have 522 tariff lines. Now, they just remove only 47 that Ugandans are producing. The policy makers will be the ones now to tell us whether what they produce is enough for all Ugandans. And for us, we first implement the policy as URA. Then at one point we can advise, maybe after financial year, and we say this policy had these challenges. That's why I come now to the issue of how do you fight illicit trade. Like when the policy on garments and textiles was implemented, especially on those items which pay per kilogram, we saw some bit of smuggling. And we are compiling statistics. Maybe we'll be presenting them at some time to the policy makers. But we are implementing it, and the policies go well. But there are some initiatives we've come up with also to fight illicit trade. I think you very well know that under the regional grouping, all the partner states, we have what we call the Regional Electronic Cargo Tracking System. We want to make it's so easy for our traders that when you are importing your goods and they are coming right from Mombasa and from Dar es Salaam, you are sure that we are tracking your goods, we are seeing them from the center here in Kampala. We are seeing them from the center in Nairobi. We are seeing them in Kigali. So there is no way a truck can divert on the road because we are monitoring under the Regional Electronic Cargo Tracking System. Government has invested a lot in this by buying what we call electronic seals. Now, in that space also, we make sure that cargo, when it reaches the border and hits our border, all the borders, if you're aware, we've constructed one-stop border posts. So there is no way you stop on the Kenyan side, then again stop on the Ugandan side. You stop once at the border. So if you're coming from Kenya, you stop on the Ugandan side, and all the government agencies clear you at once, and you move. And in that very border, we have installed non-intrusive inspection machines. Most people call them scanners. So we take a picture, and if you have concealed anything, we will see. We will see. So we don't have to open the box. We don't have open your anything. You just move, we've taken a picture, and when you have anything you've concealed, we stop you somewhere. And we say, there's something you've concealed here. But the rest just go through and go through. And that's something which is helping us to fast-track cargo as it moves without interruption, without any interruption. And most of the goods that come into Uganda, 90% of our goods are going into the bonded warehouses. You see them around Nakawa. Some are privately owned. Majority are privately owned. But we make sure we license them. Now, we have automated the processes in those bonded warehouses to do reconciliation. So that at any one time, if you are keeping your goods as you wait to pay taxes, we are seeing what you brought in, and when you want to get out, you get out what you put there, like stock management. So we've automated that stock management for reconciliation purposes. And we make sure you stay in that warehouse for strictly 6 months. If you exceed, we have also automated what we call the auction process. Because after 6 months now, then we'll auction your goods, unfortunately. But before we auction them, we say redeem them. It's an automated process. We no longer have, they have sold my goods. We just inform you online, your goods are past 6 months. You should have paid. You have not paid. So some other people may want to buy them because we can't keep them forever. And when you fail to pay them, we again allow the automation to go on through the auction process. That is something where we've come from. Because those days it would be auctioneers coming and people buy. Now it is open to everyone to see and see that that is done. But also, if you look at our electronic single window, it has other government agencies that we work with. Ministry of Agriculture, UNBS, any government agency interested in these goods that have been imported are on one window, one platform, in what documents they're interested in how to do the clearance. And this has helped us to fast-track cargo so that it moves faster. Whoever is interested, you don't have to wait for your agriculture, they stop. URA stops, UNBS stops, security stops, NDA stops. You're all on one platform. And you intervene at once. And you share the risk profiles at once so that we clear the trader at once. And we have seen this initiative help us to be quicker. And on fighting illicit, we are working with companies, the producers, to provide us market intelligence. For example, if you know you are doing wheat flour, you're producing wheat flour, and you find you don't have a market in Mbale, don't have a market in Iganga. So you come and say, I used to sell in Iganga, I used to sell in Mbale, I no longer sell. So we say, are you sure? Yes. Now we intervene. We say, where is this wheat flour coming from? It should be coming from this factory in Uganda. And then now we do what we call targeted fight against smuggling of the products that hurt our factories. The alcohol industry as well, the lubricants industry, people who do lubricants, and we are intervening using the market intelligence and working with the producers in Uganda. So there is a lot that we are doing, working with other government agencies, especially security agencies, in exchanging intelligence, and we do focused operations targeting consolidation centers, but also bilateral exchange of information with our neighboring countries. You know, South Sudan, we work closely with them, with the Juba team. We work closely with KRA in Nairobi. We work closely with Tanzania, the team in Dar es Salaam, in exchanging information and Kigali on what could be illicit, and then we fight together through joint border controls. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We switch to Commissioner Sarah, and a few things that were raised by Mr. Sechito there. You know, promoting especially our neighbors, where garments, people are beginning to trade in their garments out of these countries. He also continues to talk about what happens for protectionism of the mandate of some of these businesses, indigenous factories. And I know the roles of taxation are: one, to develop and encourage local industrialization; two, to be able to have gender and equitable distribution of wealth and income. As domestic taxes, some of these challenges that have been raised, what are you doing about them now?
Thank you so much. That question looks very broad, and it's really good, because as tax collectors, we want fairness in collection of tax, because if everyone is able to pay tax, then it will be good. And in demonstrating this fairness, we look more into the indirect taxes, because they have a wider base, especially VAT and local excise duty, because they are consumption-based. Most of these manufacturing entities produce excisable products, especially juices, spirits, sodas, beers. Those are excisable products. If every Ugandan is able to consume all that, then we are paying a fair share of that tax. We are also looking at income taxes. Mildred talked about the informality and the challenges that it creates, especially in taxation. The tax regime has simplified the informal sector in terms of taxation and ease of filing the return and ease of tax collection. If you look at the presumptive tax return, if you fill in that return, it will give you a payment registration instantly. So the return itself is like a payment registration, and it's a final return. You don't have to file another one. So you pay this tax, and it's a turnover tax, 1.5% of turnover. It ranges between 80,000 per year to around 900 per year for turnover between 10 million to 150 million. For sure, if you look at this tax regime, it helps everyone, every Ugandan, even deep in the village, to pay this tax. We really want to encourage our taxpayers to serve our country by paying tax. So this tax is very, very important. And two, if we consume the products that we manufacture, Bubu, buy Uganda, build Uganda, we shall be in one way driving the domestic tax mobilization agenda, because this money will still come back into our domestic revenue basket as taxes that we shall collect. So maybe just to talk about the question that my brother Issa was talking about on withholding tax agents. Last year we designated about 13,000 taxpayers to be withholding tax agent. When you are a withholding tax agent, the mandate on you is to withhold on suppliers, on goods and services. When you are paying your suppliers, withhold 6% of this money and pay to government. So you are supporting us to collect this tax. And the withholding point is on payment. When you are paying them, withhold and pay. Now, we even give you 15 days after the end of the month to pay this tax. So if your taxpayers are, if your suppliers are paying you in good time, we are able to see you even having some cash flow to use, because URA will expect this money between 1st and 15th. That is a lot of money if you are in the finance department of that organization.
Yes.
You know how an overdraft, you can even have to just borrow for one day to make a difference.
Commissioner Zara, as you talk, sorry for interrupting you, I want you to highlight what in common terms now people call the Gambanogu. When he mentioned that there are people who will write to the minister asking for that waiver, and the other SMEs that may not have that leeway to, access the minister, so they will not be able to get that waiver.
Actually, on waivers, there is a procedure which we follow. And there is a provision of the law that guides the way we have to recommend for waiver. Now, even if they write to the minister still writes to us to advise within the provisions of the law if this particular taxpayer is indeed eligible for waiver. Now, the law provides for economic hardships, inability of this taxpayer to pay this tax. Remember, if you don't pay this tax, it's actually a debt to the government. It's like you've borrowed money from government, and this money has to be paid back with interest. So there is a criteria within which we look into this taxpayer. We will ask for bank statements. We will come and review your business. The other day we had enforced on a taxpayer, but when we visited the business, we found actually the business was closed. So those are all circumstances where we will now recommend to the ministry that actually this taxpayer is in hardship, cannot afford to pay this tax. And then the ministry now will follow other procedures to recommend for that waiver. So as URA, we actually face our taxpayers. If we find out that this taxpayer is financially sound, we do not recommend. So if taxpayers are really constrained, they can still write to us, and then we have to vet.
All right, I could look financially sound, yet in actual sense, I am not doing well. But you look at that.
I'll come to Commissioner Mtebi. Let's look at some of the things. Kudos to you. EFRI's digital tax stamps there, rental management system, cargo tracking system, the URA TV, all these innovations you have come up with. But let's look at it here. Uganda Bureau of Statistics has 7 million people engaging in business. You only have 3.2 million people. What are you doing to leverage on technology? That's one. Two, there's a lot of e-commerce on social media. How are you dealing with getting them into the tax bracket and widening the tax base?
Thank you, Timothy. As always, you ask the tough questions. But, yes, as I think, like my colleagues have been saying, we digitalizing quite a lot. And in that process, you are able to collect a lot of information. Jumping on, for example, withholding tax. And I'll give you an example in the market. A bank has an agent network. And normally you'll find that agent networks are stationed within functional businesses. So previously, we would not collect the TIN numbers of those agents, even though the bank is supposed to return that withholding tax from the agents. So one of the things that we've done, and we continue to do in so many other cases, is say that if you're bringing this withholding tax, please make sure that the TIN numbers of the people you've collected from are listed. What that helps us do is to actually know who is in functional business out there and are they complying to pay their taxes. If they are not, then we have to visit them and bring them to the tax register. In other words, it's not just a game of collecting numbers and calling them tax registers. These have to be people who are actually participating in the economy beneficially, and they're not returning their taxes. And we've seen numbers grow in that regard. We do a lot of data matching with a number of provident funds, for example, NSSF. If I look at the amounts that are in your NSSF account, because you fight for that, and then I look at what's on your payee, I can be able to tell whether your employer is indeed doing their due job of returning their taxes. And if they are not, be able to address that gap. So one of the things we're leveraging heavily is on the data. It's big data, it's very high volumes, and we collect it from all forms of places. What Commissioner Abel was saying earlier on valuation, we also go out there and try to understand what the market rates are. And so if vehicles are coming to Uganda and they're coming from B-Forward in Japan, if we have that database, it gives us indications of the cost of particular vehicles. And they sit with us. So if the invoice comes, like it has been said earlier, and doesn't look like what we see here, the invoices and what the databases out there in pricing look like, then that gives us indication. And so there's a lot of leverage on data. The second question is really about multinationals who do business here, and they have no physical presence here, but yet they earn from here. Most of us use Uber, for example. It has no office in Uganda, but for every taxi driver using Uber, there's a huge percentage of that money that actually goes to Uber. They don't operate here. They make a lot of money here. Netflix, Amazon, a number of them, we know them. So we've engaged them. And we've told them, look, I think it's an obligation for you to pay tax in the country where you make these revenues. And they know it, because in other countries they do. And of course, there's been a lot of technical work that we've done to integrate with them so that they can know who is liable to pay this tax and who isn't, and be able to return their VAT to us. And I think there is a law, my sister Sarah will expound on this, that's coming up to require them to pay a percentage of the income tax. And we are seeing a lot of growth in that space. With the numbers, I think Sarah will expound on that. But there's engagement and there's a lot of value that is bringing to us.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll be getting back to Sarah, but I want to come back to the Commissioner General, especially on what we expect from you in terms of taxes, domestic taxes, 63%, looking at that. You were at 25.5 trillion, and with the current financial year that's coming through, we expect more than 29 trillion. And speaking to the PSST last week, it was clear that there are no new taxes, right? No new taxes are going to be introduced or have been introduced. So one is asking, where are you going to squeeze to move from 25 trillion to 29 trillion? And someone is asking, is it time to read James Elliott's book, Nowhere to Hide?
Thanks, Mildred, for that question. And I'd like to believe that it's possible. We can mobilize that tax and we can sustain the operations of our country when we agree to walk this journey together. It will not just be URA being able to collect, it will be also the taxpayers committing to this journey. Let me first of all, by the way, take this opportunity to thank Ugandans. I think Ugandans and all our taxpayers have already demonstrated that capacity. Take an example of the performance, steady improvement in performance that they have given us in the last 3 years. Now, in the financial year 19, starting with 1920, we collected 16.75 trillion. Now that was the year before COVID, or COVID just started at the end of the financial year. But 2020, 2021, we collected 19.26 trillion. That was a growth of 15% in a year of COVID. Then the following year, 2021-22, we collected 21.66 trillion. That was another growth of 13%. This was also a year of COVID and after COVID effects. Now that's not small growth. And I want maybe to put this in perspective. It's not that every financial year there is automatic growth in revenue. During these 2 years of COVID, there are some nations which collected less than what they had collected the year before COVID. But even as our own example, the year before COVID, which was 2018, 2019 into 2019, 2020, there was growth of less than 1%. And this was a year without COVID, most of it, at least about 70 or 80%. But there was no growth. The growth was less than 1%. In absolute figures, the growth was 100 billion. So when Ugandans increased the revenue collection by 2.6 trillion one year, 2.4 trillion another year, this year we have not concluded, we have 2 months to go, but I'm certain they will grow this by 3 trillion plus, then I have no doubt that the following year they can grow it by 3.5 or 4 trillion. So it is possible, but it will take sacrifice. And, you know, payment of taxes has never been simple. If, for those of you who read the Bible, if you can refer to the days of Jesus Christ, the Pharisees approached him in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, I think from verse 13 onwards. They wanted to trick him, either to put him in trouble with Caesar or to cause exemption and no payment of tax.
Yes.
So they said, you are a very good teacher. You always tell us things that are good. Tell us now, teacher, is it right to pay tax to Caesar? Remember, Caesar was based in Rome. These were territories he was governing. And Jesus knew, because he was God, he knew that they were trying to trick him. So he said, give me a coin. So he looked at the coin and he said, whose picture is here? They said, Caesar's. He said, okay, pay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. For me, that is the masterpiece that tells me about taxation. This is the first reference I gave taxpayers and the staff when I was appointed into this role. Tax is a sacrifice. It won't be easy. And that's why I want to salute Ugandans and all economic players in this economy who contribute sacrificially and fulfill their tax obligations. It takes away billions. I was asking Kim here as we entered the talk show how much he pays. And he says every year I pay 600 million. 600?
Every month.
Per month, sorry. Per month he pays 600 million. Now, if he was not sacrificing this, it would be part of his business capital. So if we have 10,000 of him, we will raise the national budget for our country. We don't have to borrow. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Ugandans, but also appeal to them and all economic players that let's step into the area of sacrifice. Let's pay our fair share of tax. Tax that is paid correctly does not hurt a business.
Yeah.
VAT, we've talked about it, is a consumer tax. Collect, pay the difference. Local excise duty, same, consumer tax. Income tax is a percentage of the profit. First profit, then you pay 30%. If there is no profit, pay no tax. So what causes many companies to struggle is when there is a mistake somewhere. You have not kept clear records, and therefore you have nothing to show as you expense. You end up spending your capital on payment of taxes. No, you should be spending a fraction of your profit. You rely on a tax agent.
Can I make a request?
Yes.
At this very moment? While these developments are there and constantly raising, I want to make a request to the Commissioner General.
Yes.
That they should start profiling taxpayers even before they demand them. It's very, very unfortunate that your business died 3 years ago and you are receiving reminders. Could we be opening new businesses while others are being killed? So it is very good to profile sectoral data and follow up deliberately to see whether while new taxpayers are coming on, the ones that we are losing are more than this. And in the long run, we might not break even. So it's very important that we create a profiling. There are many circumstances when you receive a reminder that you are being demanded 300 million, yet you cannot even have lunch and dinner.
I know.
It's a cut to be short, yes. But I was on that very point.
Yes.
So the point I was making was no business should collapse out of paying tax. And I was saying there has to be a mistake somewhere. You have relied on a fake tax agent, and there are so many in this town, and they have misrepresented you, not filed, not paid, lied you, and when we discover it's too late. So we have opened up as URA to listen to our taxpayers. And I want to appeal to our taxpayers to approach us. Because one of the initiatives that Commissioner Sarah spoke about, ledger reconciliation, this is for the benefit of a taxpayer. A ledger has two views. One view is the view of the taxpayer. When he makes payment, he knows what is left on his tax balance date, or when he pays, what has gone into his credit. When URA assesses, they affect the ledger position. Now, for many years, there was no clear communication between URA and the taxpayers. URA would implement a tax law in a certain way. The taxpayer does not know. So you find URA saying, you owe 300. You find Mr. Sechito saying, I owe you 20 million. Now, that is such a big balance. And that disparity causes conflict. By the time he comes, URA is stressed. It causes room for corruption.
Indeed.
To talk about this silently. Someone will say, let me help you sort out. We are putting an end to that confusion from a ledger. Dedicated team of more than 60 professional auditors. Sit with the taxpayers, give them a call. So I want to appeal to our taxpayers. When you get a call from a ledger reconciliation team, and they are saying, please tell us, did you pay in this year? Don't think they are trying to open up history. No, we are trying to be on the same page with you. Have the same view of the ledger the way we have it. If we had applied the wrong rule, we shall own up and say sorry and reconcile with you. So the short and long of it, URA doors are open, taxpayers approach us. Let us talk about payment in installments. It is a fact that the economy is struggling.
Sure.
You owe, but you're not able to pay everything. But URA has some discretion, some room for allowing you to pay in installments. Please take advantage of that. There is voluntary disclosure. For the time when someone messed you up, who you had trusted to do your accounts and ledger, and you discover, tell us. Because if you tell us, voluntary disclosure gives us powers to waive the penalty and interest. So you pay the principal tax. So, and I know this because I was not in URA for a very long time. Whenever I would see a message from URA, my heart would skip. I'd want to run.
For everyone.
I want to change this now, and I'm having the support of the entire team. When you receive a message from URA, read it, call back through the several channels of communication, say this is not right. I know my right. And maybe let me speak a little about the issue of corruption, because corruption takes two.
Yes.
URA officials will not be corrupt without the cooperation of taxpayers. So I've already mentioned some of the efforts that we are doing to fight corruption. But I now want to appeal to taxpayers. When anyone asks you to pay money that is not due, that is not right, say no. You'd rather pay the full amount and you pay to the country and you develop your nation. I can assure you there is no time when you will be victimized because you have refused to pay a bribe. Say no to bribes. Say no to anything that is confusing. It is your right. Why are you asking me more than I should be paying? Yeah. So I want to really appeal to the citizens, support us. Now, where are we with the current revenue collection? As at the end of this month of April, we are at about 19.74 trillion. We are working to collect 25.5 trillion. So we still have a gap of about 5.8 trillion. We are banking on our valued taxpayers and our partners to help us close this gap in the remaining 2 months. And I think we can. Why? When I look at our tax portfolio, our arrears portfolio, we have about 4.5 trillion of unpaid tax. Please approach us and let's see how you can clear that. Because when it stays at accruing interest. Come and pay the principal if you can afford. Come and pay in installments. But let's close that gap. We have already spoken about technology initiatives that just expands the tax base. Support DTS. DTS, Mr. Sechito spoke about it, the cost of this stamp. Now, constantly we've been reviewing the cost of this stamp downwards. So on the part of URA, we are committed to negotiating with the technology providers to reduce the tax stamp cost. And those who are in this sector know, when we started, alcohol was about 80 shillings, now it's at about 35. Water is about 15, and so on and so forth. So this stamp will go down as long as we have many people consuming this product. The cost of IFRIS, which he also spoke about, yes, buying that device, electronic fiscal device, is expensive. But now with the help of some of our friends, we are developing a software that will be based on an app. What does that mean? You can put that app on your phone and use it to pay an electronic receipt. So this cost will also go away. But let's commit to work together in making sure that we expand the tax base, everyone pays their fair share. I'm confident that we will collect the 5.8 trillion and we will collect the 29.3 trillion in the next financial year with all your support. Okay. And let's not be diverted by some of the noises that may take away our incentive to pay tax. For example, the noise around corruption and IGG investigation. I've already told, let's give time to the IGG to come up with a report. But some of these noises are a backfire of the cleaning job we have been doing. There are people we have thrown on the streets and they are not happy. They mobilize themselves, they become the whistleblowers, they misinform, they cause the noise. Please don't allow this noise to divert you. I'm the team lead of these people and I'm aware that I'm on a national television of moreover 2 big stations. I can give you the assurance that my hands have never touched corruption and they will not touch it. So at least be sure you have a level of appeal that cannot be compromised if everybody else is. But these guys that I'm with here, everyone can speak for themselves. There is very clear leadership and commitment at URA to fight corruption. There is a very big cadre of URA who are doing an honest job, but it's a very difficult job. It's not a simple job. It is a job of money, it's a job of temptation, it is a job of suspicion, it is a job of manipulation and lies. Please don't be distracted. The majority of URA officers do a good job.
Okay.
The few bad apples, we are working on them. They will try to fight back, but we are ready and prepared. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner General. Well said, and I don't think it could have been put any better than that. But gentlemen and lady, we are running out of time, so I'll start with Commissioner Mutebi, going all the way to Haji Issa to be able to give your parting shots in a minute each. But there's a concern here about money that was given to one individual, and they're wondering about the digital platforms. If you can hint on it, it would be very nice. A minute each, please.
Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful engagement here. From the technology point of view, I think the commitment that we have is to continue rolling out technologies that will ensure that URA delivers instant services, or at the very least, very improved SLAs as we go forward. The other commitment that we have is to be inclusive. For a very long time, I think we've not been in the informal sector, for example, heavily. A boda is supposed to pay 20,000 shillings of income tax, but they had no way of doing that because it requires you to go on the portal and the bank, and most of these are the people who are unbanked. We've brought a USSD solution to include them as well. And so many of our people who are like that. So we'll continue to deliver services that are inclusive. Lastly, like we said, we don't work alone. We do not stand as an island. We integrate to banks, we integrate to other ministries, departments, and authorities, and we shall continue to do these integrations because they help us to exchange information and drive efficiency within our systems. And that journey will continue because as we collect this information, we're able to do the analytics that eventually end up in us being able to expand our tax base.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Mutebi. Commissioner Sarah.
Just a few remarks on the electronic.
You could have your microphone just closer to you, Commissioner.
On the electronic taxes, this is VAT on electronic services, and it's 1.5% on the transaction value. We've so far collected 3.6 billion from the likes of Zoom, Netflix, Apple, YouTube, and this is really embracing digital economy. Remember, in COVID, we were able to do so many things online, and it's part of our widening of the tax base. In this year alone, we are trying to propose a new tax on income tax, on still the electronic tax, and it will be 5% of the transaction value. We really want to have a fair share of tax coming from the multinationals that consume services here. On my parting shot, just to appreciate our esteemed taxpayers for paying their fair share of tax. Tax is statutory, it's compulsory. It's never nice to pay tax, but it is nice when you serve your country and you demonstrate that patriotism. Tax is really the test of being a patriot, and thank you so much for paying your tax. We are here to give you that exceptional client service, to listen to you, to serve you, so that we can develop this country together and live in our country, Uganda, and be able to support it and grow with it. Thank you so much.
I'll skip the Commissioner General and go to Commissioner Abel, and then I'll have Haj Issa.
Thank you so much, our viewers and the moderators, for having us today. Just to inform you that there are taxpayers who have decided to comply. 118 taxpayers are called authorized economic operators. They've decided to open up to URA open up their books of accounts and they are compliant. You can go in anytime and check. And in the process, we've accredited them as authorized economic operators.
What does that title mean?
It means you are privileged. VVIP.
Okay.
There is a privilege that goes with it. There is a lot of faster clearance lane. There is a lot that happens with our AEOs because they've decided to open up. They pay 26% of the revenue we collect at customs.
Wow.
The URA. So
118.
yeah. So why disturb them? 118. So they just flow. Even they are recognized at regional level in East Africa, and they are recognized even in Uganda. How I pray that we can grow this number together so that we concentrate on a few who are struggling to comply, and we get this revenue in quickly. Thank you so much for having us, and we continue to work on this to improve our customer journey.
All right. Mr. Sechito, and as you do your parting shots, anything you feel needs to be talked about or needs to be done by URA? The Commissioner General is right next to you.
Yes, two things. One, to encourage his commissioners not to be fearful. At times they take much time to take decisions. Fear of COSASE, fear of IGG. If you are doing the right thing, why do you delay? Somebody doesn't decide, you are losing money. The Commissioner General needs to empower and encourage them to take timely decisions. If you see I've satisfied you, go and inform him. Every time I reach him with the matter, it is sorted. Why don't you sort it before I reach him? That's one. Two, minutes in meetings that we hold. It is a weakness of some revenue people. You hold meetings because of fear of accountability, they don't submit minutes to you so that you have no reference for future proceedings. And this is something that we even told the Commissioner General when we last met in a meeting where we are harmonizing on the WT8 issue. We hold a meeting. If you called us for a meeting like we are having one tomorrow with him, please avail us the minutes so that if there are decisions to base on for future decisions, you make them there and then. Other than people saying, Mr. Sekito, IGG, COSASE, what about this? So I am very pleased to be part of this team. I always say it the way I see it, and without fear or favor, because we have told the traders to know their rights but obligations too. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And the last man standing, the Commissioner General, as we wait for the 29 trillion bill to bring in the next few months.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mildred and Timothy, for hosting us and for giving us this platform and opportunity. Thanks to UBC and to NBS for giving us the platform. I want to pray that this is just the beginning of the many engagements that we'll have, because the biggest gap that we have now between us and our taxpayers is the one of mobilization and sensitization. And this can only be a beginning point. I want to also appreciate Mr. Sechito, who is a valued taxpayer, for the positive criticism, and he's a very candid man, as he says. I want to assure Mr. Sechito that going forward, we will keep improving in those areas that you keep raising, and you are also a witness that there is a lot of improvement in the past. Now, finally, as I close, I want to, of course, appreciate all the citizens who have listened to us tonight and who have been supporting us in the revenue collection journey. And I want to appeal to you that let's join hands now in building our nation together and in paying the taxes that are enough to make Uganda an independent country. In conclusion, I have listened very carefully to the words of His Excellency the President. Even today at the Labor Day, he spoke about corruption. But he's been very consistent, even on the Bank of Uganda function that you referred to. I fully agree and respect the statement by His Excellency the President. If there is a single obstacle that is standing in the path of our nation to jump into a developed country and to be self-reliant. It's corruption. So I'm not here to claim that we are not corrupt. We are. Like the Bible says, if you say you have no sin, you're a liar. We have all fallen short of God's glory. But we can have a fresh beginning as a nation. We can go in agreement and we say, taxpayers, we will commit to be compliant and to pay our fair share of tax. Tax collectors will commit to collect this tax fairly and not cheat anybody. And let's work together and develop our nation together. So the comments that he has made are right, and we give you the commitment. As Uganda Revenue Authority, we are doing everything to clean ourselves of this vice. We appeal to you taxpayers, also do the same commitment, and Uganda will develop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our panel. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen who are up there. And thank you for the discussion. You know, you can't be the change you're not part of. We need to be part of the change of this country. If we desire to see a transformation in our country, to have the social, economic impact we desire, we have to be part of this tax bracket so that we make a difference for the future of our children's children together.
That's very true, Timothy. Thank you so much for being a wonderful co-host.
Thank you too, Mildred. It was quite enlightening to be here.
Our panelists are looking at us and saying they have taken up the show. But anyway, to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us, those who joined us online. I want to attest to one thing. Sometimes when we talk about tax payment, one is thinking about a lump sum payment. I attest to an installment. I had a tax to pay, and it was quite a huge amount that I couldn't be able to pay at the same moment. And I had to go through the processes, and I was allowed to pay in installments. And that's something that the Commissioner General was speaking about. Sometimes you don't need to pay it all at once, but can be able to speak to Uganda Revenue Authority, agree on a payment schedule and mechanism, and you'll be able to pay your taxes very free, because like the CG said, the times are a little bit hard. But I also want to add off and conclude this by saying, give Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. True. Thank you for joining us. That's been great on UBC and NBS Television. I want to say good morning, because it's already Tuesday.
The 2nd
good morning
of May.
To you.
Crossed paths with the Uganda Revenue Authority, URA, as a government organization, or at least seen its name. Are you aware of who they are, what they do, how they go about doing it, and what obligations they have to you, or even of your obligations to the URA? It is time for each one of us to get on the same page. Our panelists from URA, John R. Musinguzi, Commissioner General, Abel Kagumire, Commissioner Customs, Robert Mutebi, Commissioner IT and Innovation, and Sarah M. Chelangat, Commissioner Domestic Taxes, Mr. Issa Sechito, Country Representative of Gabriel Registra, an international ISO certifying company, will be joining us to shed a light on URA's mandate, challenges, and plans. Tune in this Monday, May 1st, 2023 to UBC TV at 10 p.m. featuring representatives from the Uganda Revenue Authority with the topic URA, the mandate, challenges and plans. Join the conversation online via hashtag SpotlightUG.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Hindu, this is something which is like not tolerable.
This is disrespect to us, disrespect for Hindus. They ask for our help and then they insult us. This is wrong.
Showing this kind of things on Twitter from a country which is asking help from India itself, it's disturbing as well.
This post by Ukraine Defense Minister